Hey guys, welcome back to the Holderhek channel. So, I've been getting a lot of requests to kind of clarify what my BIS list would be for Phase 3. I made that what to yoink in Blackwing Lair video, and it kind of went over Nature's Guidance, and it kind of went over Elemental Devastation, and I think I might have even mentioned like Totem Twisting, and like those gear sets are all kind of different, and I never really, I guess, established what you should be doing, or at least that's what people are telling me. So I'm gonna go over as quickly as possible because it's actually like a lot of information with some minor changes either way on what you should gear for in Blackwing Lair if you're an Elemental Devastation orc with an axe, if you're a Tauren or a troll with a hammer, if you're Totem Twisting or not Totem Twisting. I'm gonna try to make this video not half an hour long. We're gonna see what happens. Let's do it! The first builds and gear sets we're going to talk about are going to be those involving Elemental Devastation. That's any build in Elemental all the way up to Elemental Devastation, including Elemental Fury builds. There's a couple of them, I'll list them below. This is my current 2.5 gear set, and it's what I'm going to be basing everything else off of, like how much better than this is the gear set that I'm creating. It is not the ultimate, like, BIS of the best of the best, because, you know, everybody's gear is never going to be the ultimate best you could get, unless you're extremely lucky, or you run a personal corrupt loot council, which I wish I did, but I don't, so this is just why this is here and why it's going to be listed below. It's my baseline as we create the gear sets. Jumping right into Blackwing Lair, the first set I want to go over is going to be your absolute ultimate BIS. You get everything you could ever possibly want from Blackwing Lair, okay? And this is PVE, okay? So that's, you're acquiring the Fang Talisman, you're going to use 3-piece Black Dragon Scale, you're getting Therazane's Link, you're getting the Chromatic Gauntlets crafted, and you're getting Drake Talon Cleaver and the Cloak of Draconic Might. That's all you need from Blackwing Lair. Also, I'm sorry, the Master Dragon Slayer's Ring edges out ever so slightly Don Julio's band, but if you want more crit, you know, feel free to use Don Julio's band. You end up with 802 attack power. The crit chance on 60 upgrades is wrong. I've calculated it to be somewhere around 7.5% off on the low end. So you'd add about 7.5% crit to that, and that would be your Elemental Devastation as an orc with an axe, ultimate BIS for Blackwing Lair. And for all these gear sets, I'm going to put them in the description below. You can talk to me about them afterwards, but this is going to be doing the most possible damage you can do in short fights, which most of these fights will be. If the fights go longer or your kill times are lower, you may have to swap out some pieces or enchant some pieces with intellect, like your bracers, and you probably should use a flask of distilled wisdom. On my server, those flasks are like 250 gold now, because apparently people spend all day on this game farming gold, and they seem to think that ruining the economy for everyone else is a great thing to do. So if you can afford flasks of distilled wisdom, use them on everything, okay? Let's move on to if you are not able to get a Fang Talisman. That would be here. So the thing about the Fang Talisman is you have to get that 2% hit from somewhere. So hopefully, by the time you're in Blackwing Lair, enough people have acquired a Band of Acuria, and then you can just swap your Hand of Justice with that Band of Acuria and go from there. That's really the only change. Band of Acuria is not anywhere near as good as Fang Talisman, but it's going to be what you're likely going to have to do until at least the main tank, the feral tank, and some rogues get a Fang Talisman. I have a clip on my Twitch, and I'll put that link in the description below that you can link to all your Fury Warriors as to why they don't need Fang Talisman, and if that doesn't convince them, I'll just make a whole video about that too, because I love hate clicks. Cool. Let's move on. So, now we'll move into if you are a Tauren or a Troll rocking Elemental Devastation. Your BIS weapon as a Tauren or a Troll, no matter what your spec or build, would be Sulphurous, so that's just in there. If you're a Tauren or a Troll, you need way more hit because you don't have 305 weapon skill. So you're going to get your DFT, fantastic, I'm so proud of you. Master Dragon Slayers, Quick Strike, Boots of Shadow Flame giving you that extra 2 hit. Then you're going to keep using Devil Soar for that extra 2 hit. And you're going to be able to swap the Taw Dragonhide over, you know, Black Dragon Scale Shoulders, which give you a little bit more attack power and a lot more stamina. The cool thing about this, if you're a Tauren or a Troll rocking Elemental Devastation, if you compare that to the Orc with an Axe ED build, you know, yeah, you lose 22 attack power, you lose a crit chance, but you gain 410 health, and that's not even including the Tauren racial health bonus. I just built this all on an Orc because it really doesn't matter all that much, but you'd be getting even more health than if you were a Tauren, and depending on how hard things hit and whether or not you're able to afford flasks, whether or not your guild needs flasks of the Titans on all the melee, you might just rock this Tauren or Troll set simply because you end up with way more health. And, you know, 22 attack power and a crit is really nice. That's like basically an extra piece of gear, but it's not the end of the world if you don't get those things, which I think is nice. I think that's, you know, a pretty nice trade. Now, finally, let's compare a Tauren or a Troll who can't get the Drake Fang Talisman. We're going to do the same thing we did with an Orc. The rest of your gear stays the same, but your Quick Strike Ring becomes a Band of Vicuria, and your Drake Fang Talisman becomes a Hand of Justice. Obviously, losing 76 attack power to gain a massive 20 health isn't really that great of a trade, so in all instances of Elemental Devastation, is a Drake Fang Talisman your ultimate BIS item until the end of the game. Moving into the Nature's Guidance builds, Nature's Guidance is any build that includes up to 13 points in Restoration. There's quite a few of them actually, I have those listed below as well. So all of this gear is going to be utilizing the 3% hit talent in Restoration, so you don't have to gear for as much hit. So the first Nature's Guidance gear set we're going to go over is an Orc using an Axe. So when you have a Drake Fang Talisman and you're an Orc using an Axe, you have so much free hit that it's almost impossible to not go over hit cap. So this is going to be almost the exact same gear set as you'd be using with the Elemental Devastation build, except it allows you to kind of swap out some pieces for a little bit better stats here and there. The Forest Stalker bracers over here, which you get from being exalted with Warsong Gulch, it's kind of like a personal opinion choice of mine. I like having crit and attack power instead of just like a lot of one or the other, but you could easily swap these out for Risk Guards of Stability if you just want attack power, or even, you know, Risk Guards of True Flight if you want to be even more over hit cap and add a little bit of intellect. It's not that big of a difference. And then I went with the Circle of Applied Force instead of the Master Dragon Slayer's ring, again for pretty much the same reason. I like having crit and attack power instead of just attack power, right? But, you know, you can do whatever the heck you want. Even with this Cloak of Draconic Might, right? I have this thing picked in almost all my BIS stats. The Cloak of Fire Maw is a little bit more stamina and, you know, quite a bit more attack power, but I just like having crit and attack power at the same time. And since this is the list I'm making, that's what we're going with. Anyway, so you're over hit capped as an Orc with an Axe with a Drake Fang Talisman running Nature's Guidance. What would happen if you didn't have the Drake Fang Talisman? Really not that much. Again, you're swapping your Hand of Justice for a Quick Strike Ring. Everything else stays the same. Let's compare those two sets. You lose 12 attack power, you lose about a crit, and then you gain that extra superfluous hit, which doesn't really matter. So it's not that big of a deal to have a Drake Fang Talisman if you're an Orc running Nature's Guidance, although it is still technically BIS. Now, we're going to move to our Tauren and Troll boys who get way more use out of this Drake Fang Talisman. Their gear set allows them to now utilize Black Dragon Scale instead of Devil's Soar, which is really cool for them. And then basically the exact same thing would happen. You would swap this Yakuria with the Justice if you can't get your Drake Fang Talisman. A lot of that stuff stays the same from your Elemental Devastation builds, but again, if you run Nature's Guidance as a Tauren or a Troll, which is probably what you're gonna have to do most of the time to get to hit cap, it allows you to wear Black Dragon Scale, which is objectively better than the Devil Source set and Shadow Flame and Taut Dragonhide, at least for, again, PVE DPS. You do lose somewhere like 400 health not getting those items, and depending on how squishy you feel and whether or not you respond to mechanics as quickly as possible, you may need that 400 health to just straight up not die. I can't really stress enough, like 400 health is a lot, and if you're not running a Flask of the Titans, you might just want to wear that other set. And then lastly, I just want to do that comparison of the no Drake Fang Talisman to a Drake Fang Talisman if you're a Tauren and a Troll. In this instance, it's a pretty big deal. I mean, 76 attack power is a pretty big deal. The Drake Fang Talisman is objectively way more important for a Tauren or a Troll, whether they're running Elemental Devastation or Nature's Guidance. That extra 2-hit being on a fantastic item is super important for them, even more so than it is for an Orc, but it's BIS for everybody, for different reasons. Mainly for the Taurens and the Trolls, though, because if they don't get that hit, they're never going to be able to compete. One of the final things I want to go over with this video is going to be your PvP gearing moving into Phase 3. Covered that a little bit in the Should You Rank guide, but we're going to go over it just a touch more thoroughly now. We're basing everything off of my current 2.5 PvP set. And this stuff has like a little bit of different enchants than I actually have in game because some of this stuff I use for PvE, and that's going to be sort of a problem moving forward, and I'll explain why. But this is the baseline gear set that I'm going to compare everything else against so we can see just how much we're improving, right? The first thing we're going to go into is going to be your Nature's Guidance in Phase 3. That's going to allow you to make the best gearing choices possible, get the most stats in every direction possible. So, jumping right in, we have Eskander's Collar, the most stamina, and dodge. Dodge is a super undervalued stat in PvP, especially when you're so squishy and you have no way to get out of hard CC other than a trinket, so dodge is super nice. Black Brood Pauldrons, these things are basically an upgraded version of the Bone Golem shoulders you get from Rattlegore and Skullomance. They have a little bit of MP5, but it's like, whatever, MP5 doesn't matter unless you stack it. They're okay for PvP, that's what I'd use them for. Windtalker Wrist Guards. Now these things, I feel like they're undervalued as well. You could use True Flight, you could use Stability. It doesn't really matter. I like these because I value Intellect and Spirit and Armor in PvP, and I feel like the downtime you can have in between fights, Spirit is actually pretty useful. Then you have Chromatic Gauntlets over here. These things are fantastic. They're BIS for both PvE and PvP, so in a perfect world, like I said earlier, you would have one set enchanted with haste and one set enchanted with strength, but, you know, that's not really realistic for most people, so really pick the one you focus on the most and use that enchant. In this set, we're going for PvP BIS, so they're enchanted with the PvP BIS enchant. Therazane's Link, such a beautiful item. If all of our gear was itemized like Therazane's Link and the Crown of Destruction, it would be such a completely different landscape for the Enhancement Shaman, but since we only get like 2 or 3 pieces of gear in the game that are actually itemized like ideally for us, we just have to make sure we use them, right? So Therazane's Link. Leggings of Destruction, really nice. Crit, int, stamina. Boots of Shadow Flame, super important for this Nature's Guidance build. They give you all the hit you need to be PvP hit capped in melee. So get the Boots of the Shadow Flame. They offer 220 health, 44 attack power, 2 hit, very nice. Who cares if they're leather? One piece of leather is not going to kill you. Then we have Circle of Applied Force. I've talked about that before. I like this ring. Quick Strike Ring, super BIS. And then the crowning achievement of PvP in Phase 3 is going to be your Natural Alignment Crystal. This thing, obviously, would go towards an Elemental Shaman first. They get the most benefit out of it, but as a Storm Strike Enhancement Shaman, you can utilize your 20% damage bonus from Storm Strike and your 20% damage bonus from Natural Alignment Crystal to hit people with 0 spell power on your gear for the equivalent of a crit Earth Shock twice in a row. That's incredible. This further increases our ability to global people, and it's super great that they put a trinket like that in the game for us. Obviously, if you're low on mana or you're not going to be able to use this thing, but in a scenario where you have some mana left, you can utilize your Storm Strike. Man, you could even utilize a Berserking buff from Warsong. Oh, dead. No matter what, dead. Use this trinket, they are off the planet. Fantastic. From the Nature's Guidance build, we're going to transition into the Elemental Devastation build. A lot of things here have changed because A, you need more hit, and B, you're going to try to utilize Spell Crit to give yourself more melee crit because of Elemental Devastation. I firmly believe that Elemental Devastation is more a PVE spec than it is a PvP spec. But if you don't have the money to constantly switch back and forth between the two, you can utilize some pieces of gear to make it work for you in PvP. Those pieces of gear would be, of course, switching back to the Onyxia Tooth Pendant because you need more melee crit, using the Epilots of 10 Storms for that spell crit, plus very high stamina and intellect. You would be using True Flight again for the melee hit you need. Then we're going to be using these 2 pieces of Primalist linked gear, because a little bit more of our damage should be coming from magic, and a little bit more of our damage should be coming from shocks. We're going to be utilizing the crit and spell hit and spell damage from these 2 pieces to kind of round us off and make us more of a hybrid class. You could even swap Primalist linked with 10 Storms pants, and I'm going to talk about that later in my super Dark Horse PvP build, but this is basically it, utilizing the same thing as before, the Natural Alignment Crystal, to just annihilate people with Storm Strike. I think that's going to be really fun, especially because in vanilla, I never really got to use Storm Strike or the Natural Alignment Crystal, and stacking those two 20% damage increases, oof, that's going to be really, really, really nice. And as I was talking about just a moment ago about that Dark Horse PvP build, that's going to be this. This is going to be your alternative Elemental Devastation build. This is if you want to focus even more on spell damage and spell crit and utilizing shocks to be a bigger part of your damage. Obviously, you can't have resists, so we are eliminating resists with the Star of Mystaria and Angelista's Grasp. That's going to give you the 3% spell hit you need in PvP, as well as swapping out leg plates of 10 Storms for a little bit more spell damage, and then we have Acuria down here to give us that melee hit. This gives you the melee hit, it gives you the spell hit, it allows you to be basically a true hybrid in PvP, and this is something that I kind of really want to play around with too, because I feel like it's something that, if has never been tried before, has definitely never been mainstream tried before, and perhaps this is the way to go. Our itemization as enhancement is never great. It's just never where it should be. So we need to do weird stuff, I think, like this, to think outside the box and potentially disrupt this system that has been stagnant for 15 years, barring, a few people on private servers. That's going to be it for the guide, further delving into Blackwing Lair and the loot choices you can make there, whether it's for PvE, PvP, Nature's Guidance, Elemental Devastation, somewhere in between, Orc, Tauren, Troll, Axe, Hammer. I'm hoping that I've covered it all, and if I haven't, you always got that comment section down below where you can ask me any question you want. I always got my phone on me, and I never sleep, so I'm always there to help you out. Additionally, you want to leave whatever hate comments that, warriors and mages and everybody else like to leave on this channel, feel free, because it ups my interaction, and my interaction is going through the roof. Thank you. The channel just hit 4,000 subs today, which I'm super proud of and super happy with. Anybody who's been here from the beginning or you just joined, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I can't wait to keep making these videos for you and see where the channel goes in the future. You know, if you're still here, you probably like the content, so you should hit that sub button and you should hit that bell so you're notified when I release these things. And I got a little Twitch page. You can go over to my Twitch, you can follow me there and sub to me there. I'm real close to 1,000 followers on Twitch and almost 50 subs on Twitch too. That's super cool. Once we hit 50 subs, I think I'm gonna do like a giveaway of some kind. I don't know exactly what it is yet. Once we get to 50, I'll figure it out, and anybody who's subbed to me is gonna get something, I promise. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day and week. Enjoy the first raids of Blackwing Lair. I promise you it's nowhere near as hard as everybody wants you to think it is. The suppression room's not hard. The goblins aren't hard. You're gonna learn the mechanics in one raid, and then you're gonna have it on farm for the rest of the time this phase is relevant. So enjoy it, grab that gear, do that damage, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Dev,